Gold is the only metal on Earth that is completely useless for physical survival. You cannot sharpen it into a functional hunting blade. You cannot forge it into a sturdy wooden plow. And it cannot protect you from winter blizzards or wild beasts. Yet for over 6,000 years, human beings have crossed oceans, carved massive subterranean mines into solid mountain rock, and fought colossal wars, all to possess this soft yellow dirt. When did our ancestors first notice this glittering stone? Who was the very first human to pick a gold nugget out of the riverbed? And why did our ancestors become universally obsessed with it, long before it became money, empires, or modern vaults? Gold was discovered as the ultimate piece of prehistoric magic. To trace the origin of humanity's obsession with gold, we must understand its cosmic geology. Every gram of gold on Earth was forged billions of years ago in colossal neutron star collisions. When Earth formed as a molten sphere, heavy metals sank into the planetary core. The gold we find near the surface was delivered later by an ancient asteroid bombardment. Over millions of years, rainwater and mountain glaciers ground down gold-bearing quartz veins. Rushing mountain rivers washed these heavy yellow flecks down into low river valleys. Because gold is 19 times denser than water, it naturally accumulated in gravel bends. And unlike almost every other metal on Earth, gold does not combine easily with oxygen or sulfur. Iron rusts into brown flakes. Copper tarnishes into dull green powder. Silver turns black. Gold, however, occurs naturally in its pure native elemental state. It requires no complex chemical smelting, no blast furnaces, and no charcoal bellows. A Stone Age gatherer walking along a riverbank could simply reach down and pick it up. Archaeologists believe the first human contact with gold occurred during the late Paleolithic era. Around 40,000 years ago, Neanderthals and early Homo sapiens collected unusual stones. They gathered translucent quartz crystals, shimmering pyrite nodules, and colorful banded agates. To a nomadic hunter with incredible visual acuity, a gleaming yellow pebble was impossible to miss. When the hunter picked up the nugget, they immediately noticed two bizarre physical properties. First, it was shockingly heavy for its tiny size. Second, when they struck it with a hard hammerstone, it did not shatter like flint. Flint chips into sharp razor flakes. Quartz fractures into brittle powder. Gold is the most malleable metal in the universe. A single gram of native gold can be hammered into a sheet 1 square meter wide. You could shape it, bend it, and polish it using nothing more than a smooth river pebble. Yet for thousands of years in the Paleolithic, gold remained an absolute curiosity. It was not used for hunting tools because it was far too soft to hold an edge. It was not traded because hunter-gatherers had no concept of accumulated monetary wealth. Small gold nuggets were occasionally drilled with bone awls and worn as decorative amulets. In Spanish and French caves dating to 25,000 years ago, tiny flecks of hammered native gold have been discovered in ceremonial burial sites. They were valued not for economic price, but for their visual, magical permanence. Every other material that ancient humans touched changed over time. Wood decayed into rotten mulch, meat spoiled into foul decay, flowers withered, even hard iron pyrite nodules tarnished and crumbled into gray, sulfurous dust. Only gold stayed identical. You could bury a gold nugget in wet mud for 50 years, pull it out, wipe it on your leather tunic, and it shone with the exact same brilliant fire. To the prehistoric mind, this was not chemistry, this was immortality. Gold was perceived as a physical fragment of the sun that had fallen to earth. It held the color of the dawn, the warmth of the hearth, and the permanence of the stars. It defied death. It defied decay. It defied time itself. For 20,000 years, gold remained a sacred mystical wonder of the wild. Then, around 5000 BCE, humanity entered the Copper Age in southeastern Europe. In the fertile plains of the Balkans, around the shores of the Black Sea, humans developed the first advanced metallurgy and social stratification in world history. And it was here that gold transformed from a sacred curiosity into the ultimate symbol of supreme power. At a prehistoric cemetery near the modern city of Varna, Bulgaria, archaeologists uncovered the oldest worked gold treasure ever found on Earth. The age of raw river pebbles was over. The age of the Golden King had begun. In 1972, a Bulgarian excavator operator named Rachel Marinov was digging a ditch near Varna. He accidentally struck a prehistoric cemetery dating back over 6,500 years. Dating to approximately 4,600 BCE, Varna was older than the Egyptian pyramids and Stonehenge. When archaeologists excavated grave number 43, they were left completely speechless. Inside lay the skeleton of a high-status male, roughly 45 to 50 years old. He was covered in nearly 1,000 separate pieces of solid, masterfully crafted gold. He wore 2 heavy solid gold armlets on each upper arm, weighing hundreds of grams. Around his neck hung 3 massive gold bead necklaces and a beaten gold chest plate. His ceremonial stone battle axe was encased in a hammered sheet of pure, gleaming gold foil. Even his clothing was sewn with hundreds of circular convex gold buttons and appliques. In his right hand, he held a wooden staff capped with a solid gold scepter head. Grave 43 alone contained more gold than had been found in the entire rest of the prehistoric world combined. Varna proved that by 4600 BCE, human equality had officially ended. While the chieftain in Grave 43 was buried with kilograms of gold, neighboring graves contained only a few clay pots, or nothing at all. Gold had become the physical marker of extreme social inequality. Why did the elites of Varna choose gold over copper or stone for their symbols of power? Because copper was common, functional, and utilitarian. Anyone could make a copper axe to chop down a tree or plow a field. Gold, however, was exceptionally rare, labor-intensive to gather, and completely useless for manual work. Its absolute uselessness for manual labor was precisely what made it the ultimate luxury. Wearing gold signaled to the entire community, "I am so wealthy, so powerful, and so protected by the gods, that I can afford to cover my body in a metal that cannot even chop a single branch." Gold became the world's first universal badge of conspicuous consumption. The Varna culture also pioneered the art of micrometallurgical casting. They learned to melt native gold nuggets in tiny clay crucibles at 1064 degrees Celsius. They cast intricate hollow beads, geometric diadems, and stylized animal amulets. By 4000 BCE, gold trading networks stretched across the Mediterranean and Black Sea. The knowledge of gold working spread eastward into Mesopotamia and southward into Egypt, and in the scorching Nile Valley, humanity's fascination with gold reached its absolute zenith. To the ancient Egyptians, gold was not just a symbol of royal status. In the Egyptian theological worldview, gold was the literal, physical flesh of the gods. The Egyptian word for gold was nub, giving its name to the gold-rich region of Nubia. Egyptian priests believed that while human flesh rots into dust and bone, the gods possessed immortal bodies made of indestructible, untarnishable gold. If a pharaoh wished to achieve eternal life and dwell among the stars after death, his mortal physical body had to be transformed into an immortal golden shell. The famous burial mask of King Tutankhamun contains over 10 kilograms of solid gold. His innermost royal coffin was hand-hammered from 110 kilograms of solid gold. To fuel this insatiable demand for divine immortality, Egyptian pharaohs established the most brutal, massive mining operations in antiquity. In the scorching eastern desert and the hills of Nubia, hundreds of thousands of laborers worked in suffocating subterranean quartz tunnels. They used fire setting, building roaring bonfires against the quartz rock faces, and then splashing cold water to crack the stone with thermal shock. The cracked quartz was carried to the surface, crushed into fine powder with stone mortars, and washed over tilted wooden tables lined with wool fleece to trap the heavy gold dust. This ancient washing technique gave rise to the legendary myth of the Golden Fleece. Every gram of Egyptian gold was paid for in unimaginable human sweat and organization. The pharaohs accumulated thousands of tons of gold in the vaults of Thebes and Memphis, and this concentrated golden wealth was about to completely transform the global economy. In the ancient Near East and Egypt, gold was not yet used as everyday currency. An ordinary farmer in Egypt or Mesopotamia never held a piece of gold in their entire life. Gold was an exclusive monopoly of the royal palace and the high priesthood. It was used for diplomatic treaties, royal dowries, and celestial temple rituals. In the famous Amarna letters, written in cuneiform on clay tablets around 1350 BCE, foreign kings repeatedly begged the Egyptian pharaoh for gold shipments, writing the famous phrase, "Send gold, my brother, for in your land, gold is as common as dust." Egypt was the financial superpower of the Bronze Age entirely because of its gold reserves. However, trading gold in the Bronze Age was clumsy, slow, and mathematically complex. Gold did not exist in standardized units with guaranteed purity. Every single transaction required cutting pieces off a spiral ring with bronze shears, weighing the metal on sensitive balance scales against stone weights, and testing the metal on a dark abrasive stone known as a touchstone. The touchstone is a flat piece of dark fine-grained quartz or jasper. When you rub gold against a touchstone, it leaves a distinct colored streak. By comparing the streak with known needles of pure gold and testing it with acid, an ancient assayer could determine the exact purity and carat of the metal. Yet, this process was far too slow for daily marketplace commerce. You couldn't buy a loaf of bread or a jug of beer if you had to test and weigh gold scraps for an hour. Commerce remained trapped in cumbersome barter and grain accounting. To unleash the true economic power of gold, humanity needed a revolutionary invention: standardized, pre-weighed, stamped state currency. And around 600 BCE, On the western coast of modern Turkey, the wealthy kingdom of Lydia solved the problem forever. The river Pactolus, flowing straight through the Lydian capital of Sardis, was legendary for containing vast deposits of electrum. Electrum is a naturally occurring alloy of gold and silver, with trace amounts of copper. However, natural electrum had a serious commercial problem. Its purity varied wildly. One nugget might contain 80% gold, while another contained only 40%. No merchant trusted raw electrum at face value without tedious chemical testing. King Alyattes of Lydia and his legendary son King Croesus revolutionized world history by taking over the refining and stamping of all metal. Lydian metallurgists invented the process of cementation, separating pure gold from silver. They used salt, brick dust, and intense heat in sealed clay crucibles to chemically strip away the silver, leaving behind 99% pure gold. Then, the royal mint melted the pure gold into uniform, standardized droplets of exact weight. Each gold droplet was placed onto an engraved bronze anvil die and struck with a heavy hammer holding an upper punch die. The result was the world's very first official coin, the Lydian stater. The stamp of the roaring lion was the king's personal, unbreakable legal guarantee. This piece of gold is guaranteed by the king to be pure, verified, and exact in weight. No more balance scales, no more touchstones, no more cutting wires. For the first time in history, you could simply count coins and walk away. The Lydian stater transformed gold from a sacred divine ornament into global liquid currency. Trade along the Mediterranean exploded with unprecedented speed and efficiency. King Croesus became so unimaginably wealthy that his name entered global folklore. The legendary expression, "as rich as Croesus," and the invention of the coin ignited the greatest gold rush the world had ever seen. With the invention of coinage in Lydia, every major empire scrambled to secure gold. The Persian Empire, under Cyrus the Great and Darius, conquered Lydia in 546 BCE. King Darius took Lydian coinage technology and created the legendary Persian daric. The daric was struck from 95% pure gold, weighing 8.4 grams. For over 2 centuries, the Persian daric was the undisputed international reserve currency. King Darius used his mountains of gold coins to build the royal capital of Persepolis, pave the Great Royal Road, and hire mercenary fleets across the Mediterranean. When the Greek city-states rose to prominence, gold became the supreme prize of war. In Athens, the famous sculptor Phidias built the colossal statue of Athena Parthenos. Athena's robes were made from 40 talents, over 1 ton, of solid gold plates. These gold plates were intentionally designed to be completely removable. The statue was not just a religious idol, it was the national gold reserve of Athens. If Athens faced a military siege, the city could dismantle the goddess's robes, melt the gold into coins, pay mercenary soldiers, and rebuild the robes after the war. Gold was liquidity. Gold was sovereignty. Gold was geopolitical survival. When Alexander the Great conquered the Persian Empire in 330 BCE, he captured the accumulated imperial gold vaults of the Persian kings. Over 1,000 tons of gold bullion was liberated from royal storage rooms. Alexander melted this dormant treasure into millions of universal gold staters, flooding the ancient world with liquidity and triggering an unprecedented economic boom. The global market was now irreversibly addicted to gold, and the empire that mastered gold mining on an industrial scale was the Roman Republic. To fuel its colossal military machine and sprawling administrative empire, Rome needed an uninterrupted astronomical supply of fresh gold every single month. The answer was found in the rugged mountains of northwestern Hispania, modern Spain. At a site called Las Medulas, Roman engineers unleashed the most destructive technology in antiquity, ruina montium, literally, the wrecking of mountains. Roman engineers built vast networks of elevated aqueducts stretching over 80 kilometers. They channeled roaring alpine rivers into massive storage reservoirs atop the mountains. Meanwhile, thousands of workers tunneled narrow honeycomb shafts deep into the mountain. When the reservoirs were full, the engineers opened the wooden floodgates all at once. The trapped air and immense water pressure literally blew the mountain apart from the inside. Millions of tons of gold-bearing earth were washed through long wooden sluice channels. Heather branches in the sluices trapped the heavy gold particles while the silt washed away. At Las Medulas, the Romans extracted over 6 tons of pure gold every single year. It was the largest, most ecologically devastating industrial mine in the ancient world. The gold of Las Medulas financed the Roman army, built the Colosseum, and paved the empire. The standard Roman gold coin was the aureus, weighing 8 grams of pure gold. The aureus was accepted from the foggy borders of Scotland to the ports of southern India. Roman merchants used gold coins to buy Indian spices, Chinese silk, and African ivory. Pliny the Elder famously complained that the Silk Road was draining Rome of its gold. At the lowest computation, India, China, and Arabia drain our empire of 100 million sesterces of gold every year. Gold had become the global blood supply of the ancient world. And when an empire ran out of gold, that empire inevitably died. When Roman gold mines were depleted and the empire began debasing its currency with copper, hyperinflation exploded, trade collapsed, and the Western Empire crumbled into history. The rise and fall of ancient superpowers followed the path of gold like a shadow. Gold outlived every king, every general, every army, and every empire. The empires turned to dust. The gold remained as bright as the day it was mined. Why? What is the profound psychological spell that gold casts over the human brain? To understand why gold became the universal obsession of human civilization, we have to examine its unique atomic and chemical properties. Out of the 118 elements on the periodic table, gold is the only element that meets every single requirement for universal money. Noble gases like helium and neon are invisible air and cannot be handled. Liquids like mercury are toxic, hard to measure, and evaporate over time. Reactive metals like lithium, sodium, and potassium explode upon contact with water. Radioactive metals like uranium and plutonium are lethal to human biology. Abundant metals like iron, lead, and copper are too common to store compact wealth. And reactive metals rust, tarnish, corrode, and crumble into worthless oxide dust. When you eliminate every single unsuitable element on the periodic table, you are left with only two candidates, silver and gold. Silver is magnificent, but it still tarnishes when exposed to sulfur in the air. Gold is the supreme survivor. Gold does not react with air, water, moisture, oxygen, sulfur, or common acids. It requires a specialized mixture of hydrochloric and nitric acid, aqua regia, to dissolve it. Almost every single atom of gold that was ever mined in ancient history is still in circulation today, recycled into jewelry, electronics, and bullion vaults. The wedding ring on your finger might contain gold mined by an Egyptian pharaoh, or a coin struck by King Croesus 2,500 years ago. Gold is physically eternal. Furthermore, gold possesses the exact right degree of geological rarity. If gold were as common as copper, a single coin could not buy an entire farm. If gold were as rare as rhodium, there would not be enough metal to mint coins. Gold hit the absolute sweet spot of natural planetary chemistry. It was rare enough to be precious, but abundant enough to be coined. And on a psychological level, human brains are hardwired to love gold. Our ancestors evolved for millions of years on the dry savannas of Africa, where spotting the gleam of distant fresh water was a life-or-death priority. Evolutionary psychologists believe our attraction to shiny, lustrous objects is an ancient instinctive reflex derived from the search for clean water. Gold mimics the sparkle of water and the radiant warmth of the life-giving sun. It combined the two most sacred elements in prehistoric survival into one metal. Every culture that ever encountered gold, with zero contact with each other, independently developed the exact same mystical reverence for it. In the Andes Mountains of South America, the Inca called gold the sweat of the sun. In ancient India, Vedic texts described gold as Hiranyagarbha, the golden womb of creation. In ancient China, Taoist alchemists believed drinking powdered gold conferred immortality. In ancient Ireland, Celtic chieftains wore massive crescent-shaped gold collars called lunulae. From Dublin to Peru, from Cairo to Kyoto, humanity agreed on one thing. Gold was divine. Gold was eternal. Gold was the master of humanity. No other substance in the history of our planet has commanded such universal devotion. It survived the fall of the Bronze Age, the collapse of Rome, and the Dark Ages. It crossed the Atlantic in Spanish galleons and triggered the California gold rush. And today, in the 21st century, gold remains the bedrock of global finance. Central banks around the world store over 35,000 tons of gold bullion. Even in our digital age of cryptocurrencies, stock markets, and paper money, when global financial panic strikes, humanity always retreats to the same yellow metal. The ancient instinct that began with a hunter picking up a river pebble 40,000 years ago is alive and well inside every modern human mind. We are still spellbound by the cosmic metal that will outlast the stars. When you look at a piece of gold today, you are looking at physical stardust. Every atom in that metal was forged in a cosmic catastrophe billions of years ago. It traveled across millions of light years of void, collided with early Earth, and rested quietly inside a mountain stream for millions of years, until a Stone Age hunter walking along a riverbank stopped, knelt down, and picked it up. In that single quiet moment, human history was changed forever. We didn't need gold to survive. We didn't need gold to hunt, to farm, to build, or to stay warm. Yet we chose gold as the ultimate canvas of human desire. We saw in that soft, untarnishable yellow metal a reflection of something we desperately wanted for ourselves: immortality, permanence, and eternal incorruptible light. Every empire that built monuments of stone has turned to dust. The wood rotted away, the iron rusted to powder, the cities crumbled. The kings, the emperors, and the priests all vanished into the earth. Only the gold remained. It looks as bright today as it did when the goldsmith hammered it in Varna. It shines as radiant today as it did when the pharaoh wore it in Thebes. Gold is the ultimate time traveler of human civilization. It connects the nomadic hunter, the Egyptian pharaoh, the Lydian merchant, the Roman legionary, the Renaissance alchemist, and the modern astronaut. Even on modern space probes traveling into the infinite darkness of the cosmos, we use gold mirrors to capture the faint, ancient light of the first galaxies. The cosmic metal has returned to the cosmos. It was born in the stars, it built our civilizations on Earth, and now it guides our eyes back toward the universe. The next time you hold a piece of gold in your hand, remember the 40,000-year road that brought it to your fingers. Remember the hunter who paused by the stream. Remember the miners who carved the mountains of Nubia and Spain. Remember the kings who dreamed of touching the sun. Gold is not just money. Gold is not just jewelry. Gold is the permanent, indestructible memory of human ambition. A piece of the cosmos held in the palm of our hands, an eternal sun that will never set, and a story that will shine for as long as humanity dares to dream.